they literally don't have anywhere to go. Sometimes they'll go to a friend's house, but how good is that friend? How long are they gonna let them stay there? Ever since going into foster care, I ever felt at home. And that really, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is what it's all about. On average, 800 to 850 kids age out of foster care every year here in the state of Florida. A lot of people don't realize what happens to these kids when they age out of foster care.
All right, Leigh-Ann, so tell us today a little bit about what you do and how you got started.
So I'm Leigh-Ann Vidal, and I am the co-founder and executive director of Refuge of Hope Independent Living. We started April 2023, and we just decided to start this nonprofit because we saw a great need of kids that are aging out of foster care. And what we found, honestly, was as we started talking to people about it, when we first started, the first 8 months, we started fundraising and really researching and getting trained and certified in opening an independent living home. We found that a lot of people don't realize that when kids in foster care turn 18, they literally don't have anywhere to go. Sometimes they'll go to a friend's house, but how good is that friend? How long are they going to let them stay there, right? They, end up on the streets a lot. Their family was not secure and stable enough to take them while they were not of age. And so somehow they think that going to live with them now, then they find out, wait a minute, they're still not stable. They're still not able to, take me in and help me. So a lot of times they end up on the streets, and we've taken in several girls off the streets. We've taken in guys off the streets, but a lot of times we take them in as they turn 18. So the day they turn 18, we work with counties all over the state of Florida. And as kids are aging out, we start interviewing them and, telling them about our program. They ultimately decide whether they're going to move in, and then we get to celebrate their birthday with them. And so that's always fun. But we give them a safe place to live. We also help them to get a job. We help them to get in school. If they're not in school, a lot of times they need to finish their GED or their high school diploma, and getting a part-time job. Those are two requirements that we have for them, is they must have a part-time job and they must go to school while living here. The part-time job is to save money. What we do is we require them to pay $800 in what we call rent, but that rent goes straight to a savings account for them. And they save for a car as the first goal. If they don't want to get a car, then we put it towards an apartment. The second, after they get a car, their second chunk of money that they save is the goal is for an apartment or for a home or something. So, but we plan, we stay with them. Once they live here, we call them family, and then I tell them they can't get rid of us because we still love them, and we support them in any ways that we can. But while living here, like I said, they are required to pay the $800 a month in rent. And when they first move in, they don't have a job. Sometimes it takes several weeks for them to get a job. So what I do is I keep it on an Excel spreadsheet and say, okay, well, you owe this much in back rent. You owe this much. So when they do start having a paycheck, then they give most of it to us to put into the savings account for them. We call it rent because we want to teach them that when you move out of here, this is what you're going to have to pay is rent, right? And rent comes before anything else, because if you don't pay rent, then you have no place to live. So it becomes before your phone. It comes before going out to get something for dinner. It comes before, buying these things that you want. A lot of times they want these earbuds or, stuff like that. So we're trying to teach them that rent, in order for them to have a safe place to live always, that comes first. And so we have a support specialist that works with them, and we call her a young adult support specialist. And when they first move in, they are asked a lot of questions, basically because we want to try to get to know them and what their goals are. And then what we do is we gear everything that we do towards their goals. So if they need to get a GED, or if they want to get their high school diploma, or, they already have that, and now what do you want to do with your life? You want to go to tech school, you want to, whatever that looks like for them is what we try to push them toward, guide them towards.
No, I think that's super important that you actually give them like real life situations, and because I feel like they really lived like not necessarily our real life. It's been kind of inconsistent, not really stereotypical for most people. And
Right.
so I feel like them giving them actual life skills is probably one of the most essential things, because they probably don't really have those.
That, and they've never had money. They may have lived poor for a while, okay? So they'll come and be like, oh yeah, I know how to eat for a week on $5. But if you give them $20, they go and blow it on, you know what I mean? On things that they don't need. So it's really teaching them those, yeah, like you said, life skills of everyday life. This is what, life looks like. They get so much money in food stamps and they end up blowing it the first 2 weeks. So we teach them, okay, this is how much you get. Let's break it up by 4. This is how much you can spend. And they'll say, oh, yeah. But then when they get there, they end up spending double, sometimes triple of what we had just, figured out for them. So it does sometimes take a couple months for them to get to that aha moment of, oh, okay, this is what they're trying to teach me. Unfortunately, some of them leave us before that time because they're like, well, I don't want to do this. I want to just be free, especially if they come to us at 18. We've noticed that them leaving us sooner happens more than if they'd already tried to do it on their own. So like when we get them at like 19, 20, we have noticed that they do stay longer because they had already had that realization of, okay, I tried it on my own, now I need help. Whereas, at 18, a lot of times they're just like, well, I don't want, I want to go do it on my own. And then they don't realize how hard it is to do it on their own because they have no family, right? And like I said, if they do have family, it's family that's not necessarily good family, that are there to teach them those things.
And actually help them. I mean, I think in today's world, I don't think many young people, and I'm not that old, so even my age group, know how to do that very well.
Right.
I don't know. I think some parents really just don't teach their children how to live life and do things on their own.
Well, and they don't teach it in school either.
No, they don't. So they really, these poor children, whether it doesn't matter the situation, like they kind of are just set up for failure across the board. Doesn't matter what their story is. My wife's actually a school teacher, so I get to see, she gets people from all demographics, all different economic classes, some foster kids, some homeless kids. She gets everything, especially at her school, because she works at Bellevue Santos. She has people that drive BMWs and people that, their car's breaking down in the middle of the car line. So, it's just to see these children, a lot of them just don't have life skills, even if they have involved parents. Right. They just don't have it. So,
and I actually realized that when my own kids were teenagers, probably actually a little late. My oldest was 16, and then I took in 2 16-year-old girls. So I had 3 16-year-olds.
Okay, that's
and
a
then, right, exactly. And then I'm realizing, wow, they really know nothing about life, right? Like they know nothing about paying bills. They know not. So this is when my son was getting a job, right? So I had the 2 girls that I had with me. One ended up running away a week before her 18th birthday because she didn't want to follow my rules. And really my rules were just keeping her safe. And then the other one stayed with me until she got married about a year later. And then my son stayed with me till he was 19. My daughter, she got married, bought a house, has children, bought a second house, sold that house, made money off of it, bought a second house, right? And then my son that stayed with me and learned from, and I actually put him on my credit card. I don't know if so teaching him how to build credit. So every week that he got paid, he would, pay me whatever he spent on it. So I taught him how to do that. He's 22 now. He bought his first house at 19. When he moved out, he moved into his own home that he bought, right? And so I'm realizing I looked at these 2 that stayed with me and listened to the advice that I gave them. Even though it was late, I didn't teach them till around 16, but they still are successful today. Whereas the other one that left me a week before her 18th birthday, she's 23 and she's still struggling to even have her own place. She doesn't even have her own place right now. She has a child and is not with the father. And so I look at the 3 situations, and that's kind of where this also started. I look at the 3 situations and I'm like, okay, the 2 that stayed with me and listen to my advice. And that's what I tell these kids here that are in this house. I'm like, you can listen to my advice or not, right? So, but I promise you, if you listen to me and the advice that I'm giving you and helping you, I promise you, you will, learn skills, you will save money. I will teach you how to, they do Stronger Families. I don't know if you ever heard of that, or Strong Families.
Maybe I have.
It's through United Way, and it is a financial literacy class. So they do it for 16 weeks. Okay. So it's on Thursday nights. They do it for 16 weeks. A lot of the community, Marion County business owners will come in and talk to them. I know our mayor goes in and talks to them. And so it's really cool to see all different, aspects of, how to financially be stable, right? And they end up graduating out of it. So our girls, I have 2 of them in it now, and then the other 4 will go in the July class. But that's one of the things that we require of them to do as well, because it's a financial literacy. Like you said, they don't learn it in school. I was actually a teacher for 16 years.
I knew that,
Yeah, okay. And so, they just put it back into the standards this year. Actually, I think it was this year or next year. They're putting it back in the standards where they're requiring now that in order to graduate high school, you do have to take like a financial literacy and those kinds of things. But my kids said the same thing to me. They're like, I have no idea how to write a check. I have no idea what credit looks like. You know what I mean? So, and so that's what we try to teach them here. And like I said, I looked at those 3 situations that I had, so I tell them all the time that it's up to them whether they want to listen and take the advice. If you don't, then I can't make you take my advice or take our advice, or listen to the people, your mentors that are trying to help you. But we're still going to do it no matter whether they listen or not. We're still going to tell them. We're going to try at least. Maybe something is going in there and they're might understand, or might listen to something that we say. So we do it anyway. And a lot of times they fight us on it, oh, I know how to do this. And so, okay, well, then show it to us, But that's mainly the reason why I hold their money. Actually, in the very beginning, I didn't hold their money. I was allowing them to have a savings account, right? And the 2 girls that were in the home, they had both been here. One had been here 2 months. The other had been here 4 months, maybe 3 months. And they sat us down on the couch and they're like, can you hold our money for us? And I was like, why? Because part of me was like, well, if I'm holding their money, how am I teaching them to save, right? But then it comes to the realization of, if I don't hold their money, they're not going to save. I had one girl, she came to me and she was like, I can't, I have money in the bank. My family knows I have money in the bank. I can't say no to them. I went to visit my sister over the weekend. She just had a baby. She needed diapers. She needed formula, blah, 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 blah. A couple $100s later, I, helped her because I couldn't say no, because I couldn't see that she had this baby that needed this help. And, even though I don't have, she ended up spending, a weekend, actually, I think 2 weekends in a row, she ended up spending like $600 and it was gone.
Yeah, I got it.
Right. And so she's like, I have $400. I used to have $1,000. I have $400 and I can't hold this money. Like, I need you to help. So I really had to go back to the drawing board and like, okay, well, what's that going to look like? How is it still going to help them to learn how to, and that's where we came up with the rent concept, giving the money as rent. And we also require them that with everything that they do, so with school, with work, with volunteering, any type of learning, those kind of going to Strong Families, all of that, we ask that they get 40 hours a week. So again, trying to teach them that we don't just sit around all day and do nothing, right? We actually have to be productive in life in order to, get what we want. So we have them, they keep a daily log. We call it a daily log, which is really a week. And so each day they write down what productive they did, whether they went to school, went to church, went to work, whether they went to counseling. So counseling counts. If they worked with a young adult support specialist, that counts towards there, because anything that they're being productive with or, working towards a goal, then we're counting that towards their 40 hours. And you wouldn't believe how hard it is for them to get their 40 hours. It really is. And so we take that, we try to correlate that to what they earn, right? Or what they earn, we call it earn back. They earn back their rent. So that was kind of, when I went back to the drawing board, that's kind of what I created. And it's worked really well since. Getting them to buy in sometimes instead of spending their money on the things that they think they need to spend it on, and paying the rent or putting it in savings sometimes does take a little bit of time for them to buy in. But once they start having money in savings, I send them an Excel spreadsheet. I keep it on there, like how much, I think I mentioned this. So even if they don't have a job for the first 4 weeks, they still owe that $800 in rent, right? So I keep an Excel spreadsheet. So then, they might be 2-3 months in and now they owe, $1,600, $2,400. We call it back rent. So then when they get their paycheck, we require that they give us most to all of the paycheck, right? The reason why we can require that they give us most to all of their paycheck is because we provide all their basic needs. We make sure that they have toilet paper, paper towels, shampoo, conditioner, toothpaste, toothbrush, everything. We make sure they have, and even if they have children, we make sure that they have diapers, they have wipes, they have, everything that they need. And then if there's something that we don't have for them or we didn't realize that they needed, all they have to do is ask. If they ran out of food stamps, we end up helping them with food. There is a food bank across the street, so that is a requirement that if you're out of food stamps, you must go to the food bank. But if there's anything extra that you need, especially if you have a child, I'm more than happy to provide, food for, you and your child. But that goes back to that counseling. Okay, so why are you out of food stamps? How did you spend your money? Let's look at, your transactions. Let's look at, how much you spent at Walmart. Let's look at when you stopped at convenience store and you bought, 3 energy drinks that cost $15 instead of, drinking coffee at home that probably cost $3, So again, going back to those like real life skills of let's look at what you're spending it on. And they do that at Strong Families as well. They have a counselor that works with them on looking at what they spend and how much they make and all that good stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to back it up just a little bit. So I know you talked about like when you guys first started, you guys had to do a significant amount of training. What was that? What did you have to go through to be able to do what you're doing?
Yeah, so it was mainly online, but there is a organization in Tallahassee that has been doing what we're doing for, I want to say like 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And they developed a training for people that want to do what we're doing. It's like an independent living. You get certified as an independent living coordinator or independent living home coordinator. And so it was pretty extensive. It took a long time. There was, like kind of like chapters or whatever. It took me a good 4 months to finish because it was pretty extensive, and you have to test each time you finish a chapter. You have to test, and then you have to do an end of like a summary test at the very end, and then I received the certification. It's called Daniel Kids, and they're we get a lot of what we do. They actually have a financial literacy course that we were going to purchase in the very beginning. We just haven't seen the need for it yet. But because actually, I didn't realize this, but when they age out of foster care, they actually have a program that's provided by their county that they can do this. And some counties, what I've found is because they get a stipend as well. They get, just depending on the county, I've noticed depends on how much they get per month for a stipend. I've seen it anywhere between $100 to like $450. But some counties will actually tie their stipend that they get per month to that financial literacy that they're doing. So like if they're doing the courses, then that's how they get their money. Yeah. So I really like that. And working with I know that's one of the things too is, yes, we're the state of Florida, but every county kind of has its own ways. They have their own company. Like here in Marion County, we have Kids Central. In like Gainesville and those northern counties, there's partnerships for Strong Families. And then in Hillsborough County, it was Camelot, now it's something else. But so it's just interesting because they all do something a little bit different. It's still the Florida law, right? But then they, I don't know, within their company, do
it's probably
things.
Like what's it called? Like sent out, like they like contract it.
Yes, their contracts. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, Kids Central has the contract with Marion County. And actually, A Door of Hope just came from Tampa and is also helping with Kids Central in Marion County. So, and they're doing really good things in Tampa. So we're excited about that.
So what do you think? Which county do you think is like the biggest up and coming? Tampa? Is that what you think? Or like, or which is the most beneficial? I'm just genuinely curious what you see has like the best benefits for foster kids?
So honestly, Partnership for Strong Families, which is like Gainesville, they have several counties. I want to say like 5 or 6 counties. So does Kids Central. So Circuit 5, which is Kids Central. I can't remember the circuit they're in, but I've noticed that they do provide a lot more for their youth, and their independent living coordinators seem to be really more knowledgeable about their kids that are aging out of foster care or that have aged out of foster care. So that's been nice to work with. Hillsborough County too. I mean, they, also have a good I have a good relationship with them as well. I only have one from Marion County right now, but we take from all over the state of Florida because it is a Florida, DCF, right? DCF is Florida based, or our DCF is. And so it all goes back to like the governor and what. One of the things I do want to talk about that just came to my mind, because I told you a lot of people don't realize what happens to these kids when they age out of foster care, okay? They don't realize how many kids actually age out of foster care every year. So on average, 800 to 850 kids age out of foster care every year here in the state of Florida, right? And so what we don't also realize is the amount of kids so in order to age out of foster care, right? They have to turn 18 while in foster care, okay? However, there is another criteria whether they're going to get help or not past the age of 18. So they call it extended foster care. The only way they can get extended foster care, or what they call PES, once they get into college, they can qualify for something called PES, P-E-S-S. It's post-educational secondary schooling, I think, or something like that. It goes towards their cost of living. They give them $17.50 a month. Okay. That's beyond, once they get into college, they have to keep good grades and all that good stuff. It's supposed to help with housing, the $17.50. However, they do not qualify for extended foster care or PES if they do not age out in a licensed home.
Okay.
Or a licensed group home. So somebody decides, so I've had this, we had a girl, and that goes back to our funding. Why do we always fundraise, right? Our whole first year, we had girls in our home that did not qualify for funding. One aged out in a different state. She aged out in California. So when she came to Florida, she now has no benefits, right? Another one, she aged out while in a friend's home. So so she had been in foster care since she was 8, right? In licensed foster care since she was 8. At 17 and a half, she decided, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being bounced around from home to home to home. I'm tired of being in group homes. I have a friend that her mom says, hey, you can come live with us until you turn 18, right? Well, guess what? She left licensed care. She didn't qualify for extended foster care. She doesn't qualify for PES. She has an older sister and a younger sister that decided to stay in care, and they both qualify. She was basically left with nothing. So we do take them. We take them even if they don't qualify for funding or not, and that's what we did. We had her. She stayed with us for about 7 months. She ended up having a baby. She was pregnant when she moved in with us. But she's still struggling because she's not getting that extra help, that both her sisters are getting. And so that needs to change. Like, it really does. Like, to me, and I know I don't really matter, but to me, if they were in foster care for years and then they decide to go out of, licensed care, why is that fair? I mean, 8 years, 7.5 years she was in foster care. And then because she left 6 months before she turned 18 to go live at they call it a non-relative caregiver, right? Unlicensed home. She now qualifies for nothing.
It's because they view them as delinquent, right?
Yes, I guess.
Or something like that. They have a term for that they consider it, which I think I do agree. I think it's wrong.
It's wrong. It's wrong. And that needs to change. Now, the governor did change some things, and I don't know the legalities. I'm really bad at the legal, but he did change it to where if they can qualify for some things. It's not called extended foster care, but it's called aftercare. It's only worth 6 months though. So they only have 6 months of help. And so, 6 months goes by like that, right? So, but he did, that is one change that needed to happen, but now we really need to, it needs to go. And I don't know how to do that. I'm not like, that's not the kind of person that I am. I don't know how to go to the state and advocate it for it. But if anybody out there does know how and they want to, connect with me, and seriously, I would love, to be part of that. I just don't know how to, initiate it.
Usually, I actually did some of that when I was in dietetic school. So I used to go to Tallahassee and we would do you would go, not really like protest, but there's a word for this. I can't think of the lobby. You would go and lobby.
Okay.
So, and that's what you would have to do. You'd have to lobby. So you would pick a certain time. You would need other people that are in the area. Like, right. I don't know, somebody else. Like I know Isaiah. What is it? They do foster care. That's different. But somebody like another
Isaiah was 17. Yeah.
Like another organization like that. People from there that are also in the same industry as you. You all rally together and you set a time to go to Tallahassee, and you go and talk to all the representatives, either to the representative themselves, and sometimes they will meet with you. We actually met some of the representatives, and we all got to give our voices and talk about the importance of dietetics and like why we matter as dietitians and how we help people eat better and like why we matter, because most healthcare professionals think dietitians are completely worthless and the only thing that we're good at is to do food quality and food safety, which that's the part of dietetics that I enjoy doing, but we do a lot more than just that, and we can do a lot more than just that. And so we would go and lobby and do that. So you could basically do the same thing. You would gather, and you would probably need a decent amount of people, and you'd pick which senators and representatives that you want to go speak to, whoever you think, they would do research on them, whoever they thought was the best candidate, whoever oversaw that, whatever the case is. And then you go and you just say, I would like to speak to them. And then if they say X, sometimes they'll say no because they're like in a meeting or whatever. And then you talk to their...
So you don't make an appointment ahead of time. You just go there.
You just go there. And then you just go and you talk to them. And then sometimes you talk to them. Sometimes they will meet with you, or sometimes you will meet their like assistant basically. And you can like give them paper, like a packet of like what you're doing. And then they will relay the message. That's what their job is. They actually relay the message. That's what lobbyists do all day long.
Nice. Okay.
Yep. So lobbyists just go in and they go and talk to them.
Something told me to bring that up, and because I don't normally bring that up, but it really is an issue. You know what I mean? And so, but again, kind of going into why we do our fundraising, we try to do 3 to 4 fundraisers a year because it does cost a lot of money to run this, to run this nonprofit. It costs rent and electric and, lawn maintenance and pool maintenance. There's a pool here. It costs, we provide transportation. I don't think I talked about that. We provide transportation to work and school because that was a need that we saw. Right? How can we expect them to go to work and to go to school, but yet they don't have a ride there? Our transportation system really needs to be updated in Marion County, which I heard that they are. I don't know if you heard this, but I heard that they are, because to go from here to the other side of Ocala, like over by the mall, takes over an hour.
Yes, I know that. I know it is really, really terrible.
Yeah, it really is. And so I did hear, I read it somewhere, that they are supposed to be looking at our transportation system in Marion County to try to update it a little bit or upgrade it, I guess. Maybe we need more buses. I'm not sure what we need, but
probably more specific, less broad routes is probably would help.
Right.
More specific and like having better connectors.
Better connectors, yes. And then, because they have to, in order to get on the bus, it's at the post office across the street. So they have to cross that 4-lane highway, right, to get on the bus.
With no crosswalk.
Right. And then they have to go all the way down to Walmart, that circle, and then come back this way. So why not pick up on the way back this way, right? So that's probably kind of what you're talking about. But anyway, so we do provide that transportation. We have one boy that actually owns his own like little bike that has a motor on it. So he uses that often, but... he's really the only one that has a license, actually, out of our 5 kids that we have, our 6 kids, excuse me. He's the only one that has a license. And so, that's a big issue. But the goal, that was our goal, was to provide that transportation. So it costs money, right? Like we really need another van for the boys' home. We don't have one. We have one for the girls' home, and we do a lot of transportation with that one. And I'm worried that because we do so much transportation with the one van that it's going to break down on us. But prayerfully it doesn't, but we need a van for the boys' home in order to provide transportation. Right now our house manager is just using his vehicle, and then or I go pick up or Jenny goes and picks up for them. So
that's a lot.
That's
a lot, because that's a lot of, because how many boys do you have?
We have 2 right now. I have 2 that I'm interviewing. We have one that possibly moving in any day now, and then the other one ages out in August. He actually lives at the Arnett house next door. So our boys' home is literally right next to the Arnett house.
Got you. So I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit. I know you talk about how you struggle with a lot of different things in this, and this is definitely not the easiest choice to do, and hat goes off to you. Like I said, my mom, like we talked before, my mom was in social work for a number of years, so I have heard all kinds of stories, and it can be a lot to deal with. Sometimes you get really great cases, and sometimes you don't, and it's just having to navigate, because everybody's different, like you were talking about. So would you say, like, what is probably the most difficult thing that you find doing this, that you found? To me, it seems getting them to, like, follow your playbook.
To follow the program. It is, because a lot of times, I don't know if you remember, at 18, you thought you knew everything, right? I mean, I moved out at 16, so I've been living on my own since 16. I remember calling my mom after moving out and crying on the phone with her, telling her, I'm so sorry that I treated you the way I treated you, right? Like I'm realizing that life is hard. And so, yes, getting them to buy in, really. Getting them to realize that, hey, we really do care about you, and we really want what's best for you, and I'm really trying to teach you how to, live a productive life, right? So that would probably be the hardest. And then the other part of it that kind of goes along with it is the trauma. They've been through a lot of trauma. So how can I trust you when I've never been able to trust anyone in my whole life, right? And I just met you. But that's one of the reasons why we created these homes, to be like a family. Our house managers live in the home 24/7 with them. We don't have people that rotate in and out. So they live in the home, as we call them, the momager and the dadager, right? So the momager, she lives here 24/7. She's like their mom. So them, eating dinner together, them, doing events together, doing things together. They ride in the same van every morning together, because she does this big old loop when she does transportation, right? She goes all the way from Summerfield to North Ocala every morning. And so they fight like sisters, you know what I mean? They get on each other's nerves like sisters. But really the trauma, that probably is one of the hardest things. I had a girl, she made me cry, because she, told me when she left, she moved up north with some family. And when she left, she's just like, ever since going into foster care, I ever felt at home. And that really, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is what it's all about. Literally, this is what it's all about. This is why we do what we do, is because we want them to feel at home. We want them to know that this is their family. But the trauma prevents that a lot of times, because they have their walls up, like, you can't get in. You can't make me love you kind of thing. And then a lot of times, even being a foster mom, I dealt with this a lot, is I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me. So a lot of self-sabotage, unfortunately. And we see that a lot. We had a girl just leave us a week ago. And, she appreciated what we did, and she thanked us and said she loved us, but she didn't feel worthy of being here. And so she chose to leave with a boy. And you know what I mean? And because that was her fulfillment, that's what she's looking for, fulfillment. And then that was, so those are hard. Those are hard when they choose to leave, when we know them leaving is not going to put them in a better situation than if they would just stay here and let us help them. So those are probably the hardest things.
Yeah, I'm sure it's got to be hard to, like, watch people just, it's a self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage, yeah.
I get that in some ways. I do. I get it. I mean, I see people in my family, and I've watched different things, and I'll be honest, like, I'm really big into Enneagrams, and so I'm an 8, and so I'm the challenger, and so for me to be empathetic and to really understand people, because that was a huge part of me, like, growing up as a person and being self-developed. And also, it really helps me with my job, because a lot of times I'm dealing with people that are self-sabotaging themselves in real estate, buying a house, because it can be a really big purchase. It can be scary. They can have trauma on their own too. I mean, I know that sounds kind of dramatic, but I will be honest, it is probably the most stressful purchase anybody will ever make in their entire life. Yeah. And when it goes awry, it has to always go awry in a very over-the-top dramatic way, where somebody's being too much. Emotions are high. It's stressful. It's crazy. And it brings out the worst in people.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Yes. Yeah. No, it doesn't hold a candle to what you deal with. I understand that, and I watch it happen, and like knowing people's, or at least having an idea of what they are and how they are functioning, can really help to just bring everybody down. Let's just calm down, people.
And that's what's great. Actually, both my house managers, they're both very chill people. And so they're able to kind of really just bring down, you know what I mean? We've never have had, we've never had a fight, like a physical fight. I mean, we've had like bickering, you know what I mean? But like, honestly, that was something that was a concern. Like when we started telling people what we were doing, they're like, well, what are you going to do if this happens? What are you going to do if somebody punches a hole in the wall? What are you going to do if somebody does this? You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, then we'll deal with it. But honestly, all of those things that people had issues with, or that were concerned, getting people to help to rent a house to us is really difficult, right? Because they see what we're doing and they're like, that doesn't sound very good, right? But it's literally been, God moments where the houses have just been provided for us. Like people have just, because I'll call somebody and say, okay, you have a rental. This is what I do, right? This is what I need to rent it for. And they're like, oh, we'll get back to you. They never call back. Or, we don't do that, right? And so this home actually is owned by the church. So we actually rent it from them. And then our other home, they just happened, I have no idea how they heard about that we needed a home to rent because they weren't on my Facebook or anything. Maybe it was like a friend of a friend and they reached out to us. And I was like, well, this is what we do though. This is what, because I'm like very blunt about it. Okay, this is what I need it for. This is, they're like, oh, well, let me check with my business partner. So he comes back and he's like, yeah, we're good with that. And I'm like, really? So it is very hard to get somebody to, let us rent. One day I hope that, we'll be able to own homes, and then that way we won't have to deal with that, right? Deal with renters. And then also, I hear about it all the time. People get homes donated, people get things donated to them. So one day, maybe, the right person will realize what this need is. And I have no doubt, it'll be provided. But until then, I will work very, very hard to fundraise. Every fundraiser, we earn anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000, which is honestly about a month and a half worth of what our bills are, because it costs about $6,000 a month to run everything. Some months are more depending on, if we need, like we have a lot of more move-ins, those kinds of things. Because every time they move in, a lot of times they don't have what they need. So we spend $250 on them to get what they need. Socks, underwear, bras, things that we take for granted, right? They don't have them. When they go to get a job, they're going to need specific shoes. They're going to need specific pants, specific, So all the things, right? So if we have a lot of move-ins, then we're spending a lot more money that month towards getting them the things that they need. They get a fresh bedding. Every person that moves in gets a fresh, like a bed in a bag, right? Like a comforter, sheets, pillows. So again, if we're having a lot of, rotation that month, that costs extra for us to do that. Because to me, everyone deserves a fresh set of, sheets and blankets and a pillow, not a pillow that somebody else has drooled on, right? So they get a fresh set of towels. So they get 2 towels, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths. So those are the extra costs that we might have for that month. And then we do get a lot of things donated. So we have a lot of shampoo, conditioner, those kinds of things donated. But we do pay for toilet paper almost every month because we get that donated every now and then, but it goes, goes fast, especially with 5 girls in a home. Yeah. It goes fast. Cleaning supplies. I mean, you really just don't think about all the, think about what it takes to run your home, right? Yeah. And so do that times 2, but with probably double the amount of people, in the home.
It's more cleaning, more everything.
Yeah.
Just across the board.
Exactly.
It's just going to be a lot to deal with. So I know you have some events coming up. Why don't we talk about those?
Yes, so July 24th, we're calling it EAT, E-A-T, which is Engage and Taste. It's just a time, really, we wanted our community to just come together. Local restaurants will be there for you, almost like think of it like a taste of Ocala, right? But this is going to be like more of like a taste of Marion County because we're going out, all over Marion County. We have a lot of vendors that are coming in from all over. And we also have live music from, his name is Noah Hunton, and he is local to Ocala. He doesn't live here anymore, but he came from Ocala. So he's going to be here. So again, it's really a time for our community to come together. Every ticket that's sold goes straight to, providing what these kids need. And so I don't know, we're excited about that. And this is the first time we've ever done something like this. Last year we had a gala. And that was a lot of stress. That was a lot of stress. But, so we're excited about this. And then we have August 30th, we have a 5K. People can sign up. Businesses can sign up to sponsor a team. So the goal is for it to almost be like a team building activity for their business. Yes. That's the goal, honestly. When I first thought of, came up with that idea, was it to be a team building activity for their business. But they also get their logo on the back of the race day shirt, and every runner or walker gets a race day shirt. And then if not, you can just, pay to be in the 5K. And all of those proceeds go to helping kids that aged out of foster care. We also are having the same day, it's at Citizen Circle, so we start at Citizen Circle, we end at Citizen Circle for the 5K, but at Citizen Circle we're also having vendors, so we're going to have like a fun free kids day. So we'll have bounce houses and stuff like that for after the race, when the race is over. Well, it'll be going on during it too, but we'll have vendors there as well. And again, every vendor that pays for the spot goes towards helping kids that aged out of foster care.
Oh, that's really awesome. No, I think those events are really a great way to, I don't know, just get your name out there and to have more people realize that you're here.
Exactly.
Because I think Marion County has a lot of really great nonprofits and a lot of things going on.
Yes.
But it's like underground almost.
Yes.
To where nobody knows about it. So unless you're very involved with the community or really looking for those people, it's not always the easiest to know that those things exist.
Right.
Especially if it's ran by like local people like yourself and not some, bigger corporation or bigger group or whatever that has, money for ad spend and, can afford to do these big, big backings. It does make a big difference. Something I wanted to ask, because I was just curious. You had mentioned that they have to volunteer. I'm curious, where do they volunteer at?
So we have lots of options. They have the food bank across the street that they can volunteer. We ask that they volunteer 5 hours a month. However, remember the 40 hours that I said that we require them to get? If they're short on their hours, we ask that they go and volunteer. There's a thrift store they can volunteer at. They can also volunteer like at the Humane Society. The only thing with Humane Society is that they require them to have a background check and they have to pay for their own background check. So that is a little bit more difficult. But really, honestly, we're always constantly asking for ways that they can give back to the community. And because that's what we want. That's the goal of the 5 hours, is just really to give back to the community. When they love doing the food bank. That's actually one of their favorite things to do. It's a lot of work. It's very hot, but they love seeing the faces of people that need the food. So that's one of their favorites. I've had some like the thrift store, but not like the thrift store. And then we have had, just different things that they can get involved in. But if anybody, has some volunteer, work that they can do, reach out to us. We do have a list that we give them of, these are the people that you can reach out to for volunteer. Because we do, again, want them to have a choice in it, right? I don't want to tell them you have to go do this, but because we want them to want to do it. So if they like animals, right, I think it's like a $25, $30 fee or something to get their background check. But I'm like, if you're really going to be serious about this and you're going to, I don't mind paying for the background check. But it can't just be like, oh, I'm going to go one time and then, you know what I mean? And then that's not going to be worth it. So if you're going to go every month for 5 hours, I'm more than happy to do the background check paid for you. But yeah, I think that's important for them to give back.
I can relate to the food bank thing. When I was in college, I had to volunteer as part of it. We had Greater North Florida food bank. So we would go to like these, it's like a huge warehouse. Absolutely massive. Yeah. And they bring in all kinds of stuff from Publix, Target, Walmart.
Yes.
They would come with huge things of 4 or 5 things of meat that you would have to go through, and we'd have to sort what was good and what wasn't. And you had to do all of that. And we had to do carrots one time. I remember sorting carrots. It was just part of what I had to do. It was kind of fun though. Yeah. It felt like you were doing something, and I don't know. It's it's something different, I guess. It's nice to see that, for me personally, that food is actually not all going to waste.
Right. That does happen a lot. But we have a couple that actually just started volunteering with us, and they volunteer at Brothers Keepers food soup kitchen.
Oh, okay.
And I actually volunteered there as a teenager. And that was one of my volunteer. I think it was during my health class or something like that. Maybe it was college. Maybe it was my first year of college. Anyway, I remember volunteering there. And so that was really cool because they want to get them involved with the soup kitchen as well, which again, I think is, awesome for them. Number one, to see, how good they do have it, right? Because even the kids that come off the street that we've had move in here, I feel like they forget within 3 or 4 weeks what they actually were, what the situation they were living in, because then they start complaining and stuff like that. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, So it does help that they get to see people, that are in worse situations, right? So I'm excited for them to start volunteering there. There's also Wear Gloves. I know Wear Gloves has a lot of volunteer opportunities that we've talked with them about getting our kids involved there too. So those are things that we're going to have in the future for them, options options for them.
That's exciting. I'm definitely going to keep you guys in mind because I interview a lot of people. So I think something farm related would be good for them too.
Yes. Oh, actually, I've had that before. I had one girl go work on a farm that I forget. Somebody reached out to us, and anyway, she loved it. She went and worked on a farm and just helped around the house or around the yard.
I mean, I think it's probably if you have like a lot of like emotional issues, trauma, whatever. Like, I mean, I think it's hard work, but at the same time, it is probably the easiest and most. It's very consistent. You do the same thing.
MTRA, I don't know if you know who that is, Marian Therapeutic Writing Association.
I have heard of them, yes.
So they're also a nonprofit, and that's one of the options that they have. Cool. So if they like horses and they want to go work with horses, again, kind of that reminded me when you said the mental health, because it does, brushing a horse is very, calming and soothing. So they also have that option to go do as well.
Cool. Yeah. Because I mean, nothing really teaches you I grew up on a mini farm, so nothing really teaches you responsibility as like really having to deal with like animals that are pretty helpless, especially farm animals.
Right.
They're probably some of the most helpless animals out there. They really do. They were created and made to rely on you as a human.
That makes sense.
They're
pretty. Think about that way.
Yeah, they're pretty. Chickens. We had chickens and goats. I had 60 chickens at one point.
Oh my God.
Heritage breed chickens, and I showed them. I had 60, and I raised them, and we sold them, and I showed them. So that's what I did.
Interesting.
Yep. And then when we moved here to Marion County, my senior year of high school, I wanted 2 goats for my 17th birthday instead of a car. So I got Gilbert and Gunther. They were mutts. They were Nigerian dwarf goats mixed with Nubians, and they were hell on wheels.
Oh my
Super smart. Could open up latches with their mouth. Like, they were crazy, these 2. And they were bigger, and they were just crazy. But that started this whole journey, and my parents ended up getting about 30 goats. And so my parents bred goats, and we sold goats, and had many nights where we had to bottle feed and tube feed. And
oh my goodness.
it's a lot.
Yes,
so again, I think, it really makes you realize, like, and without having a child, it's kind of like you have something that relies on you. Yeah. If you don't feed it, it's gonna die.
Yeah, that's a good way. I know, and they always ask me to get a dog here. They're like, but I'm like, listen, guys, if you can't take care of yourself, how are you gonna take care of a dog?
Literally. I did think about that. I was like, I wonder if they have any pets, but I'm like, I don't think so, because I couldn't imagine.
Right.
That's a lot to do with all in one sitting. At the very end of my podcast, what I always ask is, what would you tell somebody if they're looking to do what you do?
First and foremost, really research, and understand what you need in order to start it. And I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to do exactly what we're doing, to give them, some advice, tell them things. Because actually what we did is there is a place called Forward Paths in Leesburg.
Okay.
Yeah. And they do kind of what we do. It's a little bit different. They have more like apartments for them, with like roommates kind of situations.
Okay.
But they've been doing it for like 12 years. And so I went directly to Denise, which she's the one that started it. She used to be at Guardian Ad Litem. And I literally sat with her. She was great, so kind of the same thing. I'm willing to sit with anybody that has any questions, kind of tell them what's worked for us, what hasn't worked for us, So really my advice is to seek somebody that's already doing what you want to do and get advice, ask questions, ask what they're doing right, ask what, they've done wrong, so then you don't make the same mistakes. Like I said, we're a little bit different than but I took the basic concept of what they do or what they did, and then we kind of incorporated that. And it really helped us in the beginning to know things that we definitely did not want to do, right? Because if they failed at it, then why would we try to, again, that kind of like as a teacher, you don't reinvent the wheel. You want to, learn from other teachers and use what they're using. So that's probably my biggest advice, is just to seek out somebody that's doing what you want to do, get advice from them, do as much learning as you can, do training, whatever you need to do. And then honestly, it's still going to be different than what you thought it was going to be. Because like I said, we never expected to take in children. And here we are. I think we've had 4 kids, in and out of the house so far within the last year and a half. But it's learning how to adjust, right? Like when we first got our first kid, we were like, okay, how do we make it safe in here, right? Like we put a bar on the door. We put a lock on because there's a pool here. So we had to put locks on both, screen doors to make sure that, no child got in. So we just had to figure out, be willing to adjust, and what things come your way, be willing to change it and, figure out. And like I said, with the money thing, how we had to. So don't get so stuck in your ways of this is how it's going to be. I was very much like that in the very beginning. And I think that I scared a couple kids off that way. Just basically don't be stuck in your ways. And when in the very beginning, I was very hard. I was very like, this is how it's going to be. That's doesn't, we're not veering off of that, because realizing that people are people and they're going to have to veer off of some things. Now, there are some things that I ask them, I'm like, and usually when they ask me, I'll say, please don't please don't ask me to break that rule, right? Because if I'm expecting that of everyone, then I need to expect that of you as well. Mainly like curfew. I mean, every now and then, if they need to stay out later, if they work later, then that's completely different. But like if they want to stay out later with a friend or something like that, we just ask that they give us a call or let us know ahead of time, hey, I'm going to be later tonight. But really, honestly, our rules, and this is what I tell them when they move in, all of our rules, when you look at them, it's all about respecting themselves and respecting everyone else in the house. So if you're coming in at 1 o'clock in the morning, we have an alarm set. It sets at a certain time every night, right? You're coming at 1 o'clock in the morning, it makes the alarm go off. You're going to wake everyone else up. Jenny's going to have to get up, where Jenny probably has to get up and do transportation in the morning. So why is that fair for her to have to get up because you wanted to stay out later than, what everyone else is allowed to stay out? So it just really goes back to respecting yourself and respecting others. So,
yeah. So what would you say has been the hardest part business-wise that you've dealt with?
Probably just making sure I have enough funding. I never want to get to a point where I'm like, how am I going to pay the bills, right? How am I going to pay rent? I have all these kids in these homes, right? These 2 homes, and how am I going to, pay the electric bill? I don't ever want to get to that point of, having to shut it down because I don't have enough funding. That's probably, I don't want to say a fear, because I try not to, be fearful, but that is something that's constantly in the back of my mind. As I'm paying bills or as things are coming out and the bank account is dwindling, I get a little, oh goodness, what do I need to do? How can we, get more fundraising? Who can we reach out to say, hey, we need help? That's probably my biggest, because that's what they grew up in, right? Like a lot of times they didn't get taken away from their parents because their parents, were able to provide for them or were good parents, or, a lot of times kids get taken away because they don't have electricity. They don't have enough food in the house. And so here I am trying to make sure that those traumas aren't being, what I'm doing. I don't want to do that trauma as well. So that's probably, I've never gotten to a point where I can't pay the bills, but that is always making sure that I can.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of responsibility that you're
It is a lot of responsibility, yes.
So it can definitely be a lot of stress because there's a lot of people depending on you.
Yes, and even the house managers, right? Yeah. They still live here, so we don't pay them. They're, 100% volunteer. They do get to live here for free, but the amount of stress that they go through.
It's stressful. It's definitely.
Right, and the amount of stress they go through, I think they really are volunteers. But, they still live here too. So if I have 5 girls plus, the house manager, 2 boys and the house manager, that's 8 people that are relying on me to make sure that they have a place to live.
Yeah.
And electricity and food on the table, right?
Yeah.
Because in the end, it is on, me whether they're eating or not, because they're not really at that place where they can provide for themselves yet. So
yeah, it's just making that transition in life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, but I think what you're doing is really awesome, and I think it does help people, and I know that it's just something that, I don't know, we just don't want to address and deal with.
Right.
It's like one of those topics nobody wants to talk about, nobody wants to deal with. It doesn't get enough, it's not able to bring enough publicity.
Yes.
You know what I mean? To really be like, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of issues that we have going on in the world.
Yeah.
And we don't really focus on the ones that really matter.
Right.
At the end of the day, I feel like we focus on a lot of really stupid things. And, my mom will often call me and I'm like, look, children can't read. Children don't have homes. Children are still going to school and they still can't read, Mom. I'm like, that matters to me. And I'm like, here in Marion County, I can't tell you, there's a lot of children that cannot read and they should be able to read. And I think it's 39% of all children that are graduating high school right now can't read. So to me, I was like, that's a red flag.
That's crazy, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the amount of extreme violence that is going on across the board. It doesn't matter.
Everyone's so angry. There's just so much anger. Yeah, there is so much anger. And then just so, discontentment. Even, one that we have right now, she's just unhappy every day. And I'm like, honey, what else do you want? I don't, I'm bored. Okay, well then get a job, you're an adult now. And that's hard to teach them to transition because they're so used to, especially if they've been in a group home for a long time, and so they're just used to everybody doing everything for them, getting what they need and what they want, and then they become 18 and it's okay, well, that's not a need, right? That's a want. And so that's not something that, and that's, getting your hair done is not a need. Getting your nails done is not a need, and then I'll go get my nails done and they're like, oh, you got your nails done. I'm like, honey, I have 2 jobs. Like I work 2 full-time jobs. Like that's my only treat to myself was to go get my nails painted, right? When you are on your own and you're paying your own bills and you are working, maybe hopefully you don't have to work 2 jobs, but then you can afford to do stuff like that, get your hair done. And anyway, so, which we do have people that donate. So we have people that donate, hair and nails and, stuff like that. We had a girl that went to prom and we had most of her stuff donated. And so that was great. Our community is really good with that. Like when I reach out to the community, usually on Facebook, but when I reach out and I say we have a need for this, I have a lot of people that are commenting, hey, I can do this. Hey, I can do this. Hey, I know this person, So a lot of time, we needed shoes. Somebody moved in and they had a really big foot and they needed shoes. She wore I think it's like a size 10 or 11.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, does anybody have, these, it doesn't need to be new. But I literally had several dropped off. I had, a person that went and bought some. I had somebody that, so our community is really great with that. They're always willing to help in that aspect when we have a specific need, which is hard too, because I don't want to be like, hey, I have a need to pay rent this month. You want to provide that too? Because we pay $2,400 a month in rent over there at the boys' home. And so anyway, those are probably the hardest things. Yeah.
No, I definitely get that. Hopefully soon. Hopefully house prices will keep going down. You guys can buy something that's a lot more ideal.
Yeah. That would be awesome. We're going to need a new home soon.
Yeah.
I can see it. A girls' home. We will need another girls' home. I'm thinking that it probably will be a home for girls that have children or a child. I don't know if we would take in more, because we've had that happen before where I had a girl that had 2 kids and I couldn't take her because I'm like, I can't fit you and 2 kids in a room with someone else. You know what I mean? Because it's like dorm style.
Yeah.
Is kind of how we set up the house. Everybody has a chore every day. Everybody has, their own roles and what they do and what they need to get accomplished and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's a lot to deal with. I mean, I remember living in college and, I was very fortunate. My parents, I lived in like an apartment, so I didn't have that. But like my wife didn't have those like luxuries. So she lived like in dorms with like 2 or 3 people. And then some of them because we went to UNF, they would have like 5 of them all in but they all had like separate bedrooms, but then you shared like bath areas and like just getting people to like actually do anything was just
like that
grueling.
Bathroom is disgusting right now, and I'm trying to figure out who was supposed to do the bathroom on Saturday, because Saturdays are deep clean day and they're supposed to, because I'm like, okay, 2 days ago there's no way that this was clean 2 days ago. None.
It is. It's a lot of people, a lot to deal with, and I couldn't imagine adding several children on top of that. That's a lot to deal with.
Thank goodness we only have 1 at the moment, but yes, we've had we've had 2 kids at one time, like
at the same house.
Kids, yes, at the same time in the same house. Yeah,
it's a lot.
It was a 18-month-old and a 3-year-old, both girls, and so. But
this is a lot to deal with.
It is a lot of toilet paper.
I'm sure of that. Now, is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up here?
I don't think so. Just thank you. I appreciate, coming to talk to us, and just like you said, getting our name out there. The more people that know us will know about the needs for these kids.
Yeah, and the importance of, I don't know, doing something that matters, I guess.
Exactly.
Instead of, there's a lot of other things that we could, like I said, there's a lot of issues we have in this world, and I think protecting our youth and helping the youth be more successful and better would be better. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to another great one next week.